Hello, friends. One of my favorite practices to establish kind of the foundation, if you will, for being in our bodies or moving our bodies or just helping to connect with our bodies in a way of caring and nurturing ourselves is to do a practice called, I don't actually even know what the name of it is. I call it the establishing our perimeter, establishing our edges. This is something that I learned from Amy Gardner in my compulsive exercise training. And it translates really nicely here because sometimes when we think about caring for ourselves in whatever way we might be doing that, whether that's like eating nourishing food or moving our bodies in a way or reading, self-help books or whatever, if we don't have a really clear vision of what we are responsible for caring for, it can feel really overwhelming. And in addition to being overwhelming, it can cause shutdown. If we feel like we're responsible for all of these things, it can be really difficult to put one foot in front of the other and make any kind of step towards health-producing behaviors or moving or whatever in a way of caring for ourselves and just taking care of ourselves. So we're gonna take a minute here, it's gonna be more than a minute, to establish our edges. So I invite you to stand, but if taking this practice from seated is more supportive to you, then absolutely you can do that. If it feels good to you, I invite you to stand. Otherwise, find a seat where you can feel your feet on the ground. And then we're just going to arrive here. So feeling your feet on the ground, noticing that there's some kind of balance between the right and the left and the front to the back. So we're not shifted into the toes or into the heels, and we're not shifted far right or far left. We really want to find that middle place where things are evenly rooted down. And then maybe you flip the palms forward and we just maybe notice that we have a body to begin with. We have a body. We notice the feet moving up the ankles, the legs, knees, thighs, hips, glutes, belly, low back, heart center, each of the ribs, shoulders on the front, back of the body, down the arms to the elbows, forearms, wrists, palms of the hands, throat to neck, head. Noticing that we have this body. And then this practice is really about establishing your borders, noticing the edges of you, and what you are responsible for is what's within those edges. So I invite you to make your way to your right arm. So anytime you can choose to hover, or you can choose to pat or tap, like with tip fingers, tap, or even kind of brush. So using your right arm, you're gonna find your right arm using your left hand, and you're gonna establish the perimeter of your right arm. So brushing, hovering, tapping, whatever version of that feels good to you. And then as you find all of the edges of it, so the front, the sides, the back, noticing the places that that right arm makes connection to other parts of the body, even getting into the hand here. Saying to yourself, this is my right arm. This is my right arm. This is my right arm. And then when you feel like you've found all of the edges of that right arm, bringing both arms back down beside the body and noticing any differences, subtle as they may be, between the right and left arm. This could be something like just having an awareness, more of an awareness or less of an awareness of one or the other, a tingling or sensation, energy maybe. And then taking that practice to the opposite side. So now right hand makes its way in a hover, tap, or brush to the left arm, finding the edges, inner, outer, top, bottom, where it meets the shoulder, where it meets the wrist. And saying to yourself, this is my left arm. This is my left arm. This is my left arm. And eventually, when we feel complete with that, letting both hands make their way beside the hips, coming back to that mountain pose, and noticing the right and left here. eyes open, or you could certainly leave them closed if that feels good. We're gonna find our way to our right leg here. And again, we can always hover the hands. We can find a tap or something like a brush or a gentle massage. We're gonna work our way from the top of the leg down to the ankle and foot. Identifying that right leg in your way. And again, this is my right leg. This is my right leg. This is my right leg. And then eventually rolling back up to that mountain pose, hands coming beside the hips, and noticing the difference between the right and left legs. Blinking the eyes open and taking that practice to the left leg, using that hover, the taps, or a rub, establishing the perimeters, the edges of that left leg. Working from the hip down to the ankle and foot. This is my left leg. This is my left leg. This is my left leg. And then rolling yourself back up, finding that mountain pose, so strong, so stable, palms coming forward and beside the hips. And noticing the right and left leg now. And blinking the eyes open and taking the awareness to our belly here, from the space between our shoulders to our hips. And again, we can find this hover, kind of establishing the edges with a hover, or something like a tap, or even a brush. Noticing the front portion of the body here, of the upper body, establishing your edges in your way. And then this is the front side of my body. This is the front side of my body. This is the front side of my body. And then releasing the hands beside the hips, palms forward, feet grounded. Noticing the difference between the front and the back side of the body. And then taking the hands in any way you can here. So it might be reaching both hands to the back. It might be coming up and over the top, or maybe it's both. And see if you can establish the back side of your body here. And if you're having trouble doing this with your hands, we can always take a towel behind us and kind of do the old dry your back side off with a hand on either end of a towel here. But same practice, establishing the back side of our body. And saying to ourselves, this is the back side of my body. This is the back side of my body. This is the back side of my body. And when that feels complete, finding your way back to mountain, noticing the front and the back sides together. Differences, similarities, noticing what you notice. Maybe it's just that you have a front and back side, and that's perfect. Be gentle with yourself. And then bringing your eyes open here, taking your hands into a soft C shape. So really soft fingers, really soft thumb. And we're going to take the hands to the back of the head here. I'm going to turn around so you can see what I'm doing. So a hand on either side of the neck. And we're going to find this gentle tap. Now, if ever it feels better to find like a massage or a brush, you could sure do that too. But a little tap or a little brush here, just on the back side of the body. You could work from the center of the skull out to the ears. You might even get the side of the neck involved if that feels good to you. And if ever it feels better to be at that hover, please and give yourself permission to go to that hover. And then just reminding ourselves here, this is the back side of my head and neck. This is the back side of my head and neck. This is the back side of my head and neck. Releasing the hands beside the hips, finding that mountain pose so strong and stable. Noticing what you notice about the back of your head and neck. And then we'll use those same soft C fingers to take it to the top of the head here. So right at the center of the head. And you could work front and back, or you could work down the side of the head, even on to the forehead, like to the eyebrows and back up. We're establishing the top of the head here. So establishing your edges, your perimeter. And reminding ourselves this is the top of my head. This is the top of my head. This is the top of my head. And when that feels complete, releasing the hands beside the hips, letting the eyes fall heavy. Noticing what you notice there about the back side of the head compared to the top of the head. Finishing up with the face, same soft fingers, but always the option for the other if that feels good. Starting at the eyebrows, and then working your way around the eyes, under the eyes, back to the ears, and down to the chin. So we're finding that jawline to the ear, into the nose, out to the ear, and back up to the eyebrows. You can't really do this wrong here. We're just establishing the edges of the face on the front. And again, this is my face. This is my face. This is my face. And then taking a moment maybe to just brush the face from the top of the head to the tip of the chin. Releasing the hands beside the hips. Noticing what you notice about the sensation there. And then maybe you stay here in this mountain pose. Or maybe you invite one hand to the heart and one hand to the belly. And as if you're holding your whole self here. From the tips of the toes to the crown of the head and each of the spaces in between, this is my whole body. This is my whole body. This is my whole body. And the things that are happening within these edges are what I am responsible for caring for. Things that are happening within these edges are the things I'm responsible for caring for. Reminding ourselves that we can't pour from an empty cup. And that when we're on that airplane, we put our mask on first. Full permission here to care for the things that are occurring within the edges of you. And doing it only because we have a body that we're going to care for, regardless of its size, its age, its ability. Full permission to care for us, the us that's within these edges. Taking a breath in through the nose. And as you exhale through the mouth, softly let the fingers fall beside the hips. And when you're ready, blink the eyes open and take a moment to come back to your space.